Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to our return guest, who was our very first guest, Jere. Jere. I try to do the role because Ramon also told me there needs to be a role in his name too, Ramon.
Yeah.
I'm working with everybody's names, and once again, welcome to Teach Jenn Tech. And for all of those tuning in for the first time, we've had, let's see, it's been a week and a half since Teach Jenn Tech has launched, and guests have shown up because Teach Jenn Tech came from. I really want to get into the DevRel role, which is developer relations. That is a whole nother topic in video. Yet something a lot of people were saying was that I need to have content and I need to know how to code. And well, I didn't have either. So voila, this was launched of Teach Jenn Tech, and Jere was the very first guest and teaching me how to build this really cool site of, what are we going to do in using JavaScript and HTML and CSS. And we're doing a code review, which I'm pretty sure you're going to tell me I built it all in HTML. And yeah. Hi, Jere. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, indeed. I'm Jere. Glad to be back, and I'm glad to be following your journey. And I also do developer relations. I work for a company called MaptIn. We do indoor maps, mostly for malls. And I think some people might consider me to be a map geek. So I follow subreddits where there's like pictures of cool maps and things like that. So also love coding, and I enjoy talking about it. So when I saw you were wanting to learn something about tech, I figured, hey, I might just come on with you and see what we can learn here. What I could teach you, um, because that's also part of what you do in developer relations. You're trying to teach other people code or some technologies. So this is all learning for me as well, and I think it's great to be here.
And thank you. I think that's the cool thing with like Teach Jenn Tech. First off, if anybody wants to come on live and learn with me, totally down. Let me know. We're also have like you can submit for guests on my Twitter page. Sure, we're gonna go with that. It's the pinned tweet. Yeah, it's something like I think that's the beauty of it is we are all learning and teaching at the same time. And it's having that empathy for ourselves, but then for others. Like Yare and the rest of the guests that I've had on so far have been very kind when I'm just like, I don't I don't even know what you're saying because it's like it needs to sink in, but it won't always click at the moment. And that's what I keep having to remind myself and go, sure. And yet I've seen so many of the building blocks of what you taught me actually makes sense now because of other conversations that we've had so far. So it's been quite the journey.
That's awesome, and that's why I also wanted to go a little bit further. That I knew that you weren't quite ready yet. Like I was showing you things that you had never seen before, and I knew that it's out there. It's not just basic HTML, but I wanted to go a little bit further because on your journey, you're going to be facing a lot of these things, and the more often you see them, they start clicking in better, and you start making these connections. You remember, oh, that piece there from the second stream I had connects to this one now that I'm doing 4 weeks later. Is that it? And then you start making these connections, and that's when you really start getting the feeling that, oh, I have learned something. You get those aha moments. I know what this is. And that's one part of learning tech. Like, you get those feelings. I know what this is. And the second part is it's very there's kind of two modes of this learning technology. Is I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, you're just staring some piece of code. Happens to me every day, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I touched so many different coding languages today. It was incredible. I think I wrote or read code in 5 different coding languages today.
Oh,
um,
geez.
and I'm really not an expert on most of those, but I honestly, at some point, I was completely lost. I had no idea what I was doing or what I was supposed to do.
Oh,
And
geez. And did you have to get them all talking together?
No, not together. Luckily, they were like individual pieces that were
Okay.
independent. But it kind of highlights the fact that doing tech and DevRel especially, it's you're always learning something, and you're always kind of going to feel like you don't know everything, because the truth is you don't know everything, and that's something you'll just have to live with.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because I think we're gonna have a guest come on. Twitter handle is M4DZ, and they're going to be going over like where to, how to start reading documentation, like how you use documentation, how to create good documentation. Because to your point, like you had to use 5 different coding languages today. Like, where do you start when you're looking at them? So I'm excited for that. And yesterday we had Rizal from GitHub on, and she was explaining like the differences between Git and GitHub. And I'm like, whoa, it's finally starting to click. And yeah, it's, to like repeat and echo what you said, it's, we can learn a lot and still feel like we have no idea what is going on.
Yep.
Oh, yes, Anthony, as can sit down and be humble. Yes. And we're working on doing so.
Yeah. I'm glad we're doing it live. It's really fun to do it this way too. And it does humble you definitely when you're doing it live in front of an audience. That's a brave thing to do as well. So
Anthony, I appreciate all your help. And earlier, that's why I was just like, I'm not computing. No. Okay, bye. Because that was the cool thing, is like, I really appreciate that a lot of you have been joining multiple streams to see the journey and then like helping me on my way. And it's also really cool having to learn that about myself, of being like, okay, Jenn, they're helping you, calm down. Like, they're not just trying to like boss you around. It's cool. And having to, like what Anthony just said, of just like being humble and appreciating others wanting to help. So it's been definitely a learning part on my own too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are we ready to look at my code?
Yeah, let's look at some code. Let's see what happened. So what are we looking at here?
Really quick, just so that way we have it on the record. How would you explain what a code review is and why it's important?
Yeah, code review means that you're looking through the code, so you read it, and you kind of have to understand what's happening there, and you're giving feedback about it. And that's part of the software development process, software engineering process, where somebody else writes a piece of code, and then their code gets reviewed before it's put forward to, let's say, to a live service or in front of an audience and actual users. If you think about how books or newspaper articles or something like that are written, they also have editors, right? There's always somebody else who goes through the work before it gets published. The principle is the same. People make mistakes. We're all human. And we also get blind to our own mistakes very easily. It's very, very difficult for us to, if we write something and we try to read it back and see if there is a mistake in there. So as part of it's part of creating quality software, especially in teams, that somebody else goes through the code before it's put forward and merged with everything else. Merging means like putting together everybody else's contributions, and I think that's something that you covered with Rizal as well.
Yeah, and it makes a lot more sense, like at least seeing it. We did an example where we gave feedback for somebody to correct. Ramon actually sent a PR in, and we were able to say, hey, this is a typo, please fix, and then submit, or then we could commit it. And it's very interesting, and like it's starting to sink in. Yet in the real world, how often is like code review done every single time? I know that in theory, like in an old job, I knew that I would be like people would submit PRs to me, but I didn't know what I was doing. So it was just set up in the GitHub, that like area however you say for a company, that it would need to be approved. So it had to be approved from someone. So it was on the marketing side, and I would just hit approve. Like, I didn't know what I was approved. I didn't even know what I was looking at. So, but they just needed it approved because it was set up that way. How often does it actually get looked at, and what's the process normally? Is it like a weekly thing? Is it an every time thing? Like, how does that structure get set up?
Yeah. Very often used. I think we could do a whole episode about what is Scrum and Agile software development methodologies, and how software is often developed in terms of how that process is organized very often. But as part of all that, like, there is that review process that's sometimes, if you think about it, also mandated by a third party, let's say an auditor or something like that. Otherwise, a single malicious actor could inject code into a program that's not supposed to be there. So there are that kind of like compliance aspects to this code review as well. Oftentimes, I can't speak for all companies, but oftentimes what happens is every piece of code that becomes part of the application has been reviewed. Everything has been reviewed. And as you noticed, like in your previous experience as well, like the GitHub was set up so that everything that goes live needs to be reviewed. Okay, in some cases it was reviewed by someone in marketing, but which kind of defeats the purpose a little bit, right? And you can't really give good feedback suggestions, because not only can you like do malicious things, you can do honest mistakes that causes bugs, but it's also performance improvements, because there are different ways and algorithms that you can write these things, and you can, if another set of eyes goes through it, they can get more performance out of the code. They can say, hey, look, there's a better way of doing this, and we save, couple of orders of magnitude of running time. Like, let's say something that should take a few milliseconds takes a second to do, and then somebody else looks at it and says, hey, I know that there is a better way of doing this. So there are a lot of benefits to it, and that's why it's done every time, all the time.
Very cool. Very cool. And thank you. Yeah, I just put that on my notes to bring that up, of maybe on Theory Thursdays, of doing something along like for Scrum and Agile, because I think that's something that a lot of people are like, oh, it's like maybe like 2 weeks or something and some daily meetings, and not something that's like really talked about on like the human aspect side of it. So I don't want to get too caught up on that. Especially because I've been sharing my screen while we've been talking. So,
Yes.
So where do I start with a code review here?
Yeah, so I think usually how code reviews happens is basically you set that pull request to me, and then I'll go through the code on my own. And so maybe in this case, I'll guide you through the files that I want to see what you've done where.
Sweet.
And I'll talk through kind of my observations, and then maybe I'll ask you some questions. If we were not doing code review live, as it often happens these days, for a couple of reasons. Of course, you get the record of it for posterity, for somebody later, if you write this in the comments in that pull request. But also, like you asked, like there's not a meeting time once per week when code reviews are done. They are sent, and then everybody does them when they have the time to do it. So it's asynchronous work. So we're doing a little different here today. First, let's look at the output. So what's here on the white background on the output, and maybe you can describe to me what was your, like, why you did this, what was the purpose that you were working towards, and does it do what you expect it to?
So this is something that I am like remembering from last week when I was working on this, and it's not doing exactly what I expected to, because I thought I deleted all of this, and it was all gone here. Like, I thought I deleted hello vanilla and the text underneath it, and added hello beautiful humans and some of my favorite podcasts. Yet when I went to look at the domain name in a different tab, it added it back in there. And I was like, well, I got it to do what I wanted to do below, so I'm going to call it. And the goal was to replicate what we did in the index.js file and the index.html file to hyperlink 3 podcasts that I listened to and have them go as bullet points instead of all on one page, and using JavaScript to help put them into the mapping for it. And again, I think I somehow built this all in HTML and no JavaScript.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. And now, if we wanted to get rid of this hello vanilla part, clearly we don't want it to be here. So I'll comment on that first. So oftentimes in pull requests or code reviews, you also look at the output of the code, and then based on that, we can already see it's a little wrong from what you were trying to do. So to get rid of that, we have 2 ways of doing it, but maybe we'll just take off this JavaScript here that sets that into the app element. So and everything from line 3 to 10 you can just delete in this JavaScript file.
Out of curiosity, I wonder if I did that and if the app is still in the HTML file, could it have re-added?
No, I think maybe it wasn't saved. If you deleted this from here, it could just be that it wasn't saved, because it does take it out now even without saving. But then when you go see it in another tab, it's not saved. And so
is there like a safety for that? Because has that ever happened to you where you did a bunch of work and then didn't save? Is this like a common fear to have?
It's common fear. And that's one of the reasons we use, even for our personal projects, we use Git very often to save our changes.
I've had it happen when I've been doing video editing, and it's heart-wrenching to do 2 days worth of work without realizing I didn't save a really important part. Anthony, has that happened to you? Not saving something?
Funny thing is a lot of computer or programmer jokes revolve around the fact that computers just use Control or Command C, Command V, so copy pasting. But actually, the key combination I use more is Command S. Yes. So I might write 3 lines of code and save. There's a couple of reasons for that. I want to make sure my changes are saved, right? I want to make sure they're there. It also formats my code. So I have my editor set up so that whenever I save my file, it formats the code.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we use these formatters and configure them so that everybody writes their code in the same style. For example, in JavaScript, you don't need to have the semicolons at the end of the line. So if we didn't have the standard within the team, it would get really difficult to compare what was changed.
Would that be considered governance or a part of governance?
Yeah, I think the fact that we have that guideline would be considered part of that. Yeah.
And real quick for those listening, and I did this yesterday when we were talking to Roselle, she was talking about linting and how it's kind of like a spell check for your code. Yes. And governance is, let's see if I can explain it. The way that governance works is that it's when an organization or a team, it can even be a specific person, creates a way that things are going to be structured. It can also go into a style sheet, so that way everyone knows what they're going to be doing the same.
Yeah, you kind of write a document that outlines how we do things, because there are many things you can do a little bit different, but usually you benefit if everybody does it the same way, because then you don't You don't start bike shedding, which is when you build a nuclear plant, but you start talking about what color should we paint the bike shed for the employees in the parking lot. So
that's where I would go.
Yeah,
I would care more about that, but
it is super easy to care about the minute details. But if you have those agreed in a document, then you don't kind of have to argue about them all over again. They're there.
yeah.
You adopt them, whatever the team uses. Maybe you change them. It doesn't have to be a static document. Of course, it can change for a good reason, but it helps people work better in a team together. So.
And one other thing that I do want to mention is, y'all, the last few live streams has been with Terminal and VS Code, and I personally do love VS Code. It definitely helps me autocorrect a lot of things. I'm learning so much more about it. Yet it doesn't do this instant output, which is by far a much it makes it a lot easier to learn yet and see visually what it is right away. So I just want to give a shout out to you, Jere, for suggesting this, because it's like, okay, cool. Like, this is at least giving an example, even though you can do the same in other ways. It's just a lot harder.
Yeah.
Or more steps. I wouldn't say necessarily harder, just more steps.
Yeah, and there's a time and place for all of that, right? And I feel like for beginners, whenever they start learning things like coding, it's very important to get fast feedback of what you're doing. If you have to write something for an hour and read something before you see the result of 2 + 2 in your console, it might not be the most motivating experience, right? It might be like, is this really this hard?
Very, very true. All right. So I deleted the JavaScript that was pulling HTML to delete the stuff above.
Yeah. So now the page looks correct. Of course, we did it with JavaScript before, but to be honest, you've done it the smart way. There's no need for JavaScript in this page. Oh, so let's go have a look at the index HTML. Honestly, like, the reason we did JavaScript was just to get an introduction into that. But of course, and a lot of pages today are written in JavaScript, and then the HTML is built on the client side and then displayed. But there's in something simple as this, there's no need for that. So we were doing JavaScript for JavaScript's sake.
Okay. Yay.
And you've done it the website developer way, which is going the smart and easy way out.
Okay.
You often want to do that as a developer. You want your output to be simple and input to be simple, so now it's easily modifiable. So let's start with the row 9 here, because that's the first line. That's kind of part of the template. So now that we changed the JavaScript so that nothing is written into this div that has ID of app, we don't need that at all, because nothing changes if you delete it, right?
I was actually just going to ask that. Now, do we need a space between the body and the, should I delete both 9 and 10, or just line 9 and leave a space?
You could delete both lines. That's one of those style things that would be your linter would take care of, probably. So what happens if you hit Command Save? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, so sometimes for me, for example, if I would save and there was an extra space there, it would actually take that space away.
Okay.
HTML does not care about white space. That means that you can have all of this on one line, and it does not care. What it cares about is the tags and the elements. So you have the HTML head. So it has the opening tag for head on line 3 and the closing tag for head on line 6. That's what HTML cares about. They just need to be there in the document so they can be parsed. Whether they're on the same line, it doesn't matter. The reason we usually do have things on more lines, it's easier for the reader, right? So here,
makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, this looks great. We have Hello Beautiful Humans. That's a heading. And then you have,
I think something that confused me a bit was What exactly, like, so like H1 is header one. That one made sense to me. Like it's a good seems self-explanatory with fonts. Like it's the heading, it's the top, but and the body of a message, maybe just because of writing, it made sense to me. But what's a div and an li?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, look, if I just like highlight it,
There we go.
it tells me.
You
Oh, hey,
answered your own
cool.
question.
Okay, so a div is the div element has no special meaning at all. It represents its children. It can be used with a class, lang, and title attributes to mark semantics common to a group of consecutive elements. Interesting.
Yeah, so I actually wasn't going to give you the answer to this question. I was going to help you find the ways how you can find the answer when you have that question, how to find the answer.
I was going to Google it.
Yeah, Google it. Yeah, let's see what happens if you Google it. Like, how would you go about
Okay.
Googling this? I think we did some Googling last time as well. So
is a div tag? And you know what? In all reality, I think tag is something that I've recently learned that it would be a div tag. So I would honestly Google what is a div.
Yeah. I like the second link a lot better than the first one. That's done by the developers at Mozilla.
Yes, you taught us that the very first time. And I appreciate it. I've gone back and looked at a few things, but it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. Like I was trying to make sense of array, and I'm like, I did something.
Yeah, but that's good. And then like that's part of the learning process, like figuring how to find the information and then going back to it a couple of times and then going deeper into it, and eventually you notice that the things you didn't know a couple of weeks ago, now you're mastering them. So repetition is the key here too.
Yes, I've realized something that this is the second week I've been doing this, of having the co-working like days with Jenn, because I need to practice this, and without having the scheduled time, I'm like, oh, I'll do it. I'll do it later when I feel like it. And I'm like, I'm never gonna feel like it.
Yeah.
So having the scheduled time, I actually showed up today and I was like, cool. I was able to put it into practice after learning so much of this. So
Yeah.
yes. Okay, cool. So this says a div is the content division element. The div HTML element is a generic container for flow content. It has no effect on the content or layout until styled by some way using CSS. E.g., styling is directly applied to it, or some kind of layout model like Flexbox is applied to its parent element.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what does a div do? Nothing by default, right? It doesn't do anything necessarily unless you add some styles to it or decide to use it as like it's kind of like a container for content that you can style so that you have like a specific group or something like that you can then get a hold of and then style in some way. And I'm
letting that sink in.
Yeah. So basically, do we need the div tags here? This would be a question for me if I would ask in a code review.
And I'm going to answer with, I don't know. Let me try it without it. No, I guess not.
Yeah. So in this case, not. I've been taught, and I'm not sure how necessary it really is today, that all our text should be wrapped in some kind of tags. So in this case, I would put that in a P tag, which represents a paragraph.
Yeah, and that one would be, and I was looking that up. That was something that I spent a lot of time on, was the types of tags, because I wasn't able to get like the spacing I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's like where I spent the majority of my time that time is. I was like, I need a specific spacing. And I think maybe I just figured out it was like, I don't know. I'm not seeing them in here. I don't know. Maybe I am. Is that what the L and LI do?
That's what creates the list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. The next thing I'm going to ask, what's the purpose of this line 13? What is it there for?
Leftover code from previously that I didn't delete, or yeah. Okay.
Because it doesn't do anything, right? It's empty. There, it doesn't render anything. Like there's no text in it, right?
That's like, this is so cool because I was just like, oh, I got it to do what I wanted to do. Okay, done. I didn't even think about like looking to see and make sure that the code that was there was actually doing something, which just causes a ton of clutter. And if somebody else needed to look at it, oh geez. Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing about software development and pair programming and these different methodologies that help eliminate that type of stuff, like unnecessary code, for example. There's a methodology called test-driven development, where you write a test first, and then you write the code that makes the test pass. So you write a code saying, hey, we have a function to add two numbers together. If we give it number 2 and 2, does it give us 4 or not? And then after that, we write the function add. And then once we've written that, there's a third step, not just to make the test pass, but the third step is actually to refactor the code. So we don't only want to make the code work, but we take it like another pass through the code and see, can we do it better? And that kind of test-driven methodology can help you do that by yourself. It kind of makes you do the code review yourself.
That makes sense. So like if I was doing that type of methodology, it would be like, cool, it's like stuff is showing up, and then like it would just be random, anything would show up, and then have it say what I wanted to say. Okay, cool, it's doing that, and then going back and actually like making it all work properly. And that
making sure that you don't do anything unnecessary. For example, put an H1 tag where there's no need for one.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, make sure that you know what you want, then have your code do that, and then go another time and see, is there a better way of doing it? Is it missing something, or is there something extra there?
Okay.
Part of that editing process, right?
Yeah. How long? Because like I've already noticed this, that there's things that I write that I'm blind to. I'm also horribly dyslexic, that I am learning to work with it. But like, how long do you normally give yourself from taking a break from it to going back and reviewing it?
I would say, a lunch break, coffee break, maybe doing another task in between, do somebody else's pull request review, and then get back to it. I think the important thing is to get your brain out of it, so that you kind of have to start from scratch to reorient yourself through the code.
Got it.
So
cool. Thank you. Okay, now I'm like kind of thinking that I can look at this and review it too. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I wish this would go away. I don't.
Oh yeah, you can get it to go away if you click there another.
Oh, okay, there we go. And then I can move this over, because we need this here. That puts it in the list view. This adds the is it called an href?
Yeah, it's called href is how it's, I think, referred.
Okay, cool. And it puts the podcast, like the link to the text, and then we close that out, make a new list, but on this one, should they, like this one I have on the same line and this one I have on 2 different lines, doesn't matter? Is there like a proper way of doing that?
For the HTML and the browser, it doesn't matter. For anybody who's reading your code or editing your code, it might matter. So it might be easier to read if they are not they are on separate pages. Typically with HTML, where you would put the line break after the closing. So you would put the line break before the S. There you go.
Okay. So I can fix that. I honestly don't remember saving it like this, but it definitely could have been because I didn't really know 100% what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say that I didn't do that.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that I would drop the /A to the next line from there then as well, just because it looks better to me that way. I don't know, someone might disagree, but it kind of indents how deep you are in the document object, and then your eyes, it kind of makes it easier for your eyes. And oftentimes when you want to write code that's easy to read, you want to make the cognitive load needed for reading the code as little as possible, because then I can actually focus on what the code is doing instead of trying to figure out how it's doing it. Like, making sure that this A tag matches the A tag on row 26, for example, will become much easier if they're aligned.
Now, if I'm keeping going, I don't need this script anymore because we're not running JavaScript.
That's correct as well. Almost. We are doing one thing in the JavaScript file. We are importing the CSS file, in the JavaScript. Normally that would be done for a page like this. It would be done in the HTML.
Okay.
But because we are doing in the JavaScript file and maybe we want to build on this, we could leave it here for now.
Okay. And then this closes this out. Body and then HTML.
Yeah. There is one thing that I would do different, like I would add to this. I think it's not breaking anything. So I would wrap the li elements into a ul element. So basically above the first li, I would put a ul. Yeah, and then I would close after the last li. I would put a closing tag for the ul. And then maybe it's a good idea to go see what it does from MDN or.
Oh, it like moved everything over to make it prettier.
Yeah, that's what it does. Yeah, and actually the tool that does it is literally called Prettier.
Oh yeah, I have that. It's like a plugin for VS Code.
Yeah, and it uses the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it does make it prettier because like it just made it easier to read with the UL. And I'm going to highlight the UL. The UL element represents a list of items where the order of the items is not important. That is, where changing the order would not materially change the meaning of the document.
Yeah. What does that last sentence mean? That's kind of like raises more questions than it answers, right? So let's try to figure out. Change that into OL. That and both that and the closing tag. So you of course always need the matching closing tag for everything that you do. And now look at the output. What changed?
Okay. Give me. I need to turn off plugins. Like they get in my way for some stuff and it drives me nuts. Oh, it put the numbers. Oh, hey. Okay.
So what does an OL tag then say about itself?
The OL element represents a list of items where the items have been intentionally ordered such that changing the order would change the meaning of the document. Oh, so it's like bullet point. It literally is bullet points versus numbering. Exactly.
So now you've given a ranking to these items. Clearly you have one podcast that you care more about than the others. If you mark it as UL, it's just a list. Of
Okay.
let's say ingredients in a recipe. The
Mhm.
order doesn't matter when you're just listing them, how to get what to buy from the store. But you can turn off your Grammarly plugin from top right of your browser next to the there you go. I think that
Yeah.
if you click somewhere there.
There we go. No, turn off. I don't want to remove you.
Is there like a no, I thought there would be like an option where you could say, oh, there's like on all websites. I don't know. I thought there could
Yeah,
be an
like
option
I've
like
had
just
to
turn it off for this one.
no, I've had to turn it on and off when I was doing it through LinkedIn Learning. When VS Code would go live in a browser, I would have to turn them on, all my extensions off, because console would error out.
Okay.
Learned that the hard way. Lots of Googling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we did it. We did it.
We did it. I think we're at the end of the code review. Maybe we want to change it back to UL if we don't have an ordering for them. So that's probably something that we can change back.
I'll leave it. We'll leave,
Okay.
Shit you don't want to talk about at the top of it. I'm totally okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. And it's good that there's something to still do in the future. Yeah, that's basically a code review. At this point, I'd be like, okay, now it does what like somebody, our customer wanted, whether it was the product owner or some customer giving us feedback about a feature, or whoever gives us the definition of what needs to be done. And at this point, I'd be like, yeah, it looks good to me, and let's move this forward. Let's put it to production. So congrats, you passed the code review with some comments.
Yes, and
good.
just thinking about it, if okay, I learned that SRC has the majority of goodness gracious, the majority of like the files you want, like the CSS and the index.js. So if I want to do color again, I will Google it because I don't remember. Let's see if we can Google this. CSS color, adding. Oh, hey. Applying color to HTML elements using CSS. And not gonna lie, how I normally would do it is just like scroll through this to see if I can figure it out. But
find an example or something that pops out, right?
yeah, but I'm like, maybe I should be actually like reading this, but it's a lot of text to read just to find one little thing.
It is, and it depends what you're doing, whether you want to read it or not. In the beginning stages, it can be really nice to get just something working quickly, and especially even then as a like more when you get more senior and more comfortable with things, you also just want to move fast. You got know what you want. Just give me the exact answer to the question I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But especially when something doesn't work, or you kind of still need to understand the foundations a little bit better, it's a good idea to read what's offered. But of course, for this and for today, we could just hop in. Then I can tell you how to do the colors, or maybe you can.
I'm seeing if I can find it.
So what color do you want to change?
The header.
The color of the header. Okay, so the text, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, this is a long page. What I would do, I would hit Command F and search on that page. Not only like find it right. All right. I don't think there is a color specifically for a header, but maybe the text color you can change. That might help you.
This is going to be like me trying to. Handling different text directions. Nope, we don't need that. Styling text, maybe. guides, assessments. No, okay, cool. No, those are just fonts to import. Like we have that already. Not gonna lie, this is like probably why it's really frustrating to like watch my homeworks, like my co-working sessions, because I'm like staring at it, trying to find it, and people are like, "It's right there in front of you. This is how."
Yeah,
I get that, but I'm
it
learning.
happens. I've watched. I like watching tech streams on Twitch, and it does happen where I watch something. I'm like, it's right there, and it depends on who's streaming. Some people are like, please no backseating, like don't try to tell me how it is, and some people welcome that. And that's something that you get to define what's good for you as well as the person running the stream, right? Like if you want people to kind of help you out, give you those hints, and of course I wanted you to kind of look through there instead of giving me the answer in this case as well, even though I was kind of like a observer or like a viewing what you're looking for.
Well, while we were talking about that, I remembered that it kind of guesses it. Yeah. So I think I would, if the body is font family sans serif, maybe header color. No.
So you just want to change the H1 tag color, right?
Yeah.
So for that, you get out of the body, and below it you write H1. So basically what's happening now is you're modifying everything inside the body tag. So what you see here on line 1 corresponds to a tag in HTML. So every body tag would get font family sans serif.
And this is when you do the squiggly lines. Yes. I've been getting lost on the squiggly lines, what I use them for. But I think a lot of it, yay. Okay.
There you go.
And then I could look up like what this text is and change that. Okay. Hey. Yeah. And I got frustrated at trying to search it that I just decided to type color and this thing guesses it, which I think is another really cool feature to learn with, of just like, I don't know, I'll try it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Experimenting is one of the best ways to learn coding and technologies. Anyways, that's how I learn most of the things that I worked with in technology.
Wait, why is it trying to like save it? There we go.
Yeah. So if you hover color, it actually links you to the MDN reference there. And you can click on that link as well. That's really cool. So those are called selectors. You have a body selector. You're selecting by the HTML tag right now.
Mm-hmm.
But remember how we also had IDs? Like we had the div with an ID of app.
Mm-hmm.
So we could also, and maybe I don't have editing rights. Could you add editing rights for me for a moment? So I'll show you something with what happens with the IDs.
There you go. There we go.
So if we go to the index.html and we see the paragraph there with here are some of Jenn's favorite podcasts, and we give an ID now. And the ID is podcasts. And we save that, and then we go to the style CSS. Now, I'll add another paragraph here to demonstrate something. Welcome to MySpace. Just to demonstrate something. So now we have one P tag with an ID of podcast and one P tag in general.
Okay.
2 P tags, and I need to find the right page. So then we go, and if we now want to target everything that is a P tag, we could change their background color, for example. And see, I even typoed it, and it's so smart that it can tell me its background color. And we're gonna choose a color for here. Okay, this sounds good. Okay, this I can pronounce, cornflower blue. And we save it, and now we can see where the P tags are. Those are the P tags. However, I actually just wanted to change the one that talks about the podcasts.
Okay.
So in order to do that, we can also target the ID. And now only one of them is colored.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the reasons you would give an ID to an element, because that can be then used as a selector in CSS and JS or JavaScript to find that specific tag within your code.
Go back. Let me choose a color. Oh, you just let me do it. No, you won't let me do it.
You can, I think if you start writing, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so even though it's second, oh, you deleted a color and just changed the text weight.
Yes.
Okay. If I add a color in there, and we'll just make it blue. It does override it. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So what we see here is a demonstration of the priority of the selectors. So a selector with that just targets a tag like P has a lower priority than a selector that targets the ID, something based on an ID.
Okay. And that's why I wanted to move it up, just to see if it changed it. So like, even though seeing if it reads it from like top to bottom, or if it reads it by priority. And you're saying CSS reads it by priority.
Yeah, it does have some priority in it. If things are in same priority, they overwrite the previous rule.
I feel like this is definitely giving me a good grasp. I'm finally starting to see how I can start to build things myself. I get that HTML and CSS are very, very basic, yet now that I've also been able to see a little bit of like Express and React, I'm like, ooh, okay. I think maybe in a few more sessions, I'm going to be there that I can actually build something myself, which is going to be cool. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I wanted to do a little bit, like at least a couple more tidbits here at the end of the code review as well, to kind of maybe answer a few things that you might have run into or might have questions about next. And yeah, that was fun.
It's definitely cool. That was fun. Like, this is definitely something. I think you also really did teach me how to do a code review, because this was something that I was running into, I think, in a lot of them, where I'm still trying to like understand the content that's coming at me, that I'm not necessarily reading through everything, because I'm just like, oh, I need to keep up with someone. And Anthony brought this up earlier of like, yo, you should probably like write down your own instructions, or like read what terminal's putting out. And I'm like, I don't always know what each of those pieces mean, so I'm just skipping over them too.
Yeah.
So
if you have some time when you do all this, like if you do a session on your free time and things like that, Free Code Camp is a really great resource for beginners. I think they go through some of these beginning stages in a very nice structured way, where you do learn, but you also build things along the way. So that way you'll definitely get a hang of all this. And I think now might be the right time to go there. For HTML and CSS. If you wait too long, the beginning sessions will feel like, oh, I already know this, and then you skip over them, and then you might lose something that kind of was like an interesting tidbit there that you otherwise wouldn't have run into. So that might be something that would support your learning HTML and CSS really fast right now.
That'd be cool. And I mean, I remember being very, very stuck in my learning on JavaScript on LinkedIn Learning. And I'm just like, I feel like if I restart the learning, I might get a little more less stuck now. So I'm like, maybe I should actually like finish that one too.
That's a good idea as well. Yeah.
Get that one done. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show today and being our first guest, our first returning guest as well.
That's awesome. Breaking records here. That's amazing. Happy to be here. I think I hope to be the first one to make it here 3 times. So
yes.
if you can do
well, thank you again, Jere. Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.